I was just given some insight that I really wanted to share. Our Father in heaven has placed so many stories within stories in the Bible that are uplifting, that are that give us direction and tell us his heart. The story of Jacob. Jacob, as you know, was a twin from Isaac. And Jacob had stolen, quote unquote, the birthright and the blessing from Esau. Esau was the firstborn. But God had already told his mother, Rebekah, that Jacob was going to be greater than Esau. I have heard that the word for Jacob is deceiver, and it seems true in the word as well. And that also the word for Rebekah is also deceiver. I haven't verified that one. But regardless, Jacob leaves his father's home to save his life because Esau is upset at him for stealing his birthright, because he deceived his dad into giving him the blessing. Sorry, the blessing, not the birthright. He travels on this journey to go back to Rebekah's family's home. On the way there, as you know, he sleeps over night somewhere and he sees Jesus in a vision. It's an epiphany. It's a ladder with angels going up and down, and Jesus later said that he's that ladder, the doorway to heaven. But Jacob gets back to his mother's homeland, and he sees Rachel, a shepherdess, pure Rachel. Remember, in God, in all the law, all the animals were perfect. Never had a yoke on them. Rachel was a maiden, a virgin. And he fell in love with her. And he asked Laban to marry her. We see that in Genesis 29. Right here. While he was still speaking with him, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherdess. Now as soon as Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother, Jacob came near and rolled the stone from the mouth's well. Apparently the stone was heavy. And watered the flock of Laban, his mother's brother. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and wept aloud. And Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's kinsman, and that he was Rebekah's son. And she ran and told her father. Now he'd been there a month, and that's when Laban said, "Should you serve me for nothing? Tell me what your wages shall be." And it said that he loved the daughter, the younger daughter, Rachel. Jacob loved Rachel, and I will serve you 7 years for your younger daughter, Rachel. That's 7 years. 7 years had gone by. And neither Leah nor Rachel were married during that 7-year period. Isn't it fascinating? It's 7 years. Fascinating. When is the time of Jacob's trouble? It's 7 years. Everything God does is in sevens, and we know that. We know that. Well, not everything, but we know there's a lot of sevens. But here's the more fascinating part. When the 7 years is over that he has served, he's given Leah, not the bride of promise, He was deceived by the deceiver. In this picture, we know that in many of these stories there are pictures of what's going on with Jesus. He does say the book, every page of the book points to him. So, first 7 years, the first covenant, yeah, okay. So then, after he finds out it's Leah, he says, oh, we never give our first daughter, our oldest daughter, first. We have to give our oldest daughter. So, he says, go ahead and finish up your bridal week with her. It's not done so in our country to give the younger before the firstborn. Complete the week of this one, and we will give you the other also, in return for serving me another 7 years. Oh, so 7 more years you must serve me for the promise that I gave you to begin with. So, he goes ahead, and after the bridal week, he goes ahead and gets the promise before the 7 years are served. But he still needs to serve them. And as a diligent servant, he serves them in faith. But he gets Rachel at the beginning of those 7 years. Isn't it fascinating, though? She doesn't give a child until the end of those 7 years. It's not until those 7 years are over that she gives birth. Jacob did so and completed her week. Then Laban gave him his daughter Rachel to be his wife. None of this other, it's probably important somewhere, but right now it's not hitting my spirit. The Lord saw that Leah was hated. Remember, when we're talking about Esau and Jacob, the Bible says, Esau I hated, but Jacob I loved. We know that hated is not the word. We know that in Hebrew it means love less. It doesn't mean hated. That's our word. But Rachel was barren. She was barren. She was the one of promise. The 7 years of promise. We had two time periods with Joseph. The 7 years of famine. The 7 years of plenty, and then the 7 years of famine. There's a lot of things going on in sevens, and double sevens mean a lot. Going on to the end of all of this, God remembered Jacob, God remembered her. She conceived and bore a son and said, God has taken away my reproach. And she called his name Joseph, saying, may the Lord add me another son. So she named her son, may he give me another, essentially. That's Joseph's name. But not only was it important that there were 2 7 years periods of times, 2 different covenant. We have the covenant with Leah, the old covenant, right? Then we have the 7-year period of the new covenant with Rachel, his promised one. The promised one. We also have this small period of the wedding week, which is a shorter period of time, much shorter, 7 days. 7 days. 7 days. Seems to be maybe the time period we're in. Who knows? Speculation, right? But point is, it rings a bell. There's a spiritual aspect to it that is phenomenal. The time period between the 2 promises, right? Jesus walked on earth for a short period of time. They say that Daniel's 70 weeks, right? That we're at week 69 and the clock stopped. I'm not saying it's true. I'm not saying it's not. It's not the point. But 69 weeks, there's a 7-week period in the end, right? Maybe. And then the last week, the 70th week, is when things really pick up. And that's split up in half, 3.5 and 3.5. 1,290 days, 3.5 years, however you want to say it. Going further, when they get back, I just wanted to show you that Rachel did not give birth until the end of her 7 years. That's when she became fruitful. As soon as Rachel bore Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, "Send me away that I may go to my own home and country. Give me my wives and my children for whom I have served you, that I may go, for you know the service that I have given you." But Laban said to him, "If I have found favor in your sight, I have learned by divination that the Lord has blessed me because of you. Name your wages and I will give it." Jacob said to him, "You know yourself how I have served you, how your livestock has fared with me, for you had little before I came, and it has increased abundantly, and the Lord has blessed you wherever I turned. But now, when shall I provide for my own household also?" So here's what we know right now. Given these words, we know he served 7 years. He married Leah. He spent the wedding week with Leah. Then he married Rachel. Okay? And however long it's been right now, there's no indication currently of how long it's been. But he hasn't provided for his own household at all. Nothing. He's been given nothing. So now he's get to provide for his own household, his own kingdom. He's provided for Laban's kingdom up until this time. Laban said, "What shall I give you?" And Jacob said, "You shall not give me anything. If you will do this for me, I will again pasture your flock and keep it. Let me pass through all your flock today, removing from it every speckled and spotted sheep and every black lamb, and the spotted and speckled among the goats, that they shall be my wages." Now hold up. Oh, the spotted and the speckled. Spotted and speckled. My spirit moved in me when I read this, because the spotted and the speckled are not the perfect livestock. We saw that when we studied the law and the offerings. Every offering had to be a perfect livestock. Not one spot, not one wrinkle. In fact, it says in many, many places that he wipes away our spots and wrinkles, right? He wipes them away. He makes us righteous. It's his righteousness, not our righteousness. But yet, in Jacob's kingdom, he's only getting the spotted and the speckled. He's getting them. So my honesty will answer for me later when you come to look again into my wages with you. Everyone that is not spotted, not speckled and spotted among the goats, and black among the lambs, if found with me, shall be counted stolen. And Laban said, "Good, let it be as you have said." In this image, Laban is the enemy, and Jacob is the redeemer. We've got two kingdoms here clashing. But that day, Laban removed the male goats that were striped and spotted, and all the female goats that were speckled and spotted, everyone that had white on it, and every lamb that was black, and put them in charge of his sons. So everything that's spotted and speckled, he quickly took them, hid them away. So Jacob couldn't get them. The deception. But who are the spotted and the speckled in the story, really? It's you and I. And he's trying to steal them. And our Redeemer is trying to redeem them. So anyway, we still haven't indicated how long this has been. But at the end, well, we know, so here's a funny part, right? We know that God is making this promise, okay? We know that. But Jacob still sets the sticks that he had peeled in front of the flocks and the troghs, the watering places where the flocks came to drink. And he did that with the strong ones. Fresh sticks of poplar and almond and plane trees and peeled white streaks in them. So he did his part. And whether this worked or not, whether this had anything to do with it, sometimes we humans see things in the flesh. But also, there's a partnering, though. So it's a little hard to understand a lot of the ways of the Old Testament. But here's what I know. God requires a partnership. It's us together. Us doing stuff that he's asking us to do, partnering with him. So it's all for his will, but we're doing it with him. It's not all just us sitting back and doing nothing and God just doing everything. It's a partnership. So whether this plays into that, it's an interesting take, right? Anyway, so we know that what ended up happening, though, is that God took all of that flock, or the majority of it, and gave it to Jacob. Okay, so the wealth of the wicked was saved up for the righteous, God's people. Thus the man increased greatly and had large flocks, female servants and male servants, and camels and donkeys. God grew the church. God grew the kingdom. Whether it had anything to do with this or not, I don't know, but here's what I know. God did it. At the end of the Jacob's leave, okay? Then the Lord said, return to the land of your fathers and to your kindred, and I will be with you. Okay, he started, there was controversy building up in the camp. The way that they felt about him wasn't the same as the way they used to. God said, okay, now it's time to go. It's time to go back home. A lot of times the excess of controversy is how you know when it's time to go. It's not always the case, but often. But it was confirmed here. God confirmed it. He always confirms. So then he sent first 2 wives, the old covenant and the new covenant, and said, I see your father does not have regard for me as he did before. I served your father with all my strength, and your father has cheated me and changed my wages 10 times. But God did not permit him to harm me. And every time, it was always spotted. If he said, the spotted shall be your wages, then all the flock bore spotted. And if he said, the striped shall be your wages, then all the flock bore striped. Thus, God has taken away the livestock of your father and given them to me. And even so, in dreams, God was telling Jacob. The angel of God said to me in a dream, Jacob, and I said, here I am. And he said, lift up your eyes and see. All the goats that mate with the flock are striped, spotted, and mottled. For I have seen all that Laban is doing to you. Of course, he tells them to go back. And the wives agree. They go back. So then they leave. Rachel, unfortunately, steals his gods, her father's gods. I don't know why. No idea why she did that, but she did. And anyway, so they go on, and Laban chases them and does catch up with them later. And then he searches everyone's tent, and Rachel is sitting on her bag, and she says she's having her period. She can't get up, but that's where she's hidden the gods. And Jacob had already said, this I find, the scary thing to me is how powerful our words are. And I'm just speculating this because I know our words are powerful. And we say things that are irresponsible because our words are supposed to build up and not break down. Our words are supposed to bless and not curse. But God gave our words power. So I'm not saying anything by this, but I just find it odd. And I've mentioned this a few times in church. It says, hold on, I'm trying to find the words. Here. But why did you steal my gods? This is Laban to Jacob. And Jacob answered and said to Laban, because I was afraid, for I thought that you would take your daughters from me by force. Anyone with whom you find your gods shall not live. In the presence of our kinsmen, point out what I have that is yours, and take it. Now Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen them. Anyone with whom you find your gods shall not live. Now he didn't find his gods. He went back empty-handed. But I do find it very interesting that Rachel died before they got back. I do find that very interesting. Not saying for 100% sure that's why she died, but here's what I know. Our words are powerful. We don't even realize it. We do it to ourselves all the time. So anyway, Jacob went and searched, didn't find him. Laban. And then came back and said he didn't find him. And Jacob was angry. He said, what is my offense? What is my sin? That you have hotly pursued me. For you have felt through all my goods. What have you found of all your household goods? Set it here before my kinsmen and your kinsmen, that they may decide between us two. This is where it's key. These 20 years I have been with you. And he says this more than once, but this is one place. Your ewes and your female goats have not miscarried, and I have not eaten the rams of your flocks. What was torn by wild beasts, I did not bring to you. I bore the loss of it myself. From my hand you required it, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. So Laban required that everything that was stolen or killed, that Jacob had to pay for it, in addition to the fact that he was only getting the dark and the speckled and all those things. There I was by day, the heat consumed me, and the cold by night, and my sleep fled from my eyes. Here he says again, these 20 years I have been in your house. I served you 14 years for your 2 daughters and 6 years for your flock. There you have it. You changed my wages 10 times. So the first 7 years for Leah, the second 7 years for Rachel, and now it's 6 years later. Now we know that he had a baby after this time, after the 7 years. We saw that. So this was for the flock, was the 6 years. We remember talking about that promise. He says, I have not done anything for my household. What shall I do for my household? That's when they made the agreement for the flocks. That was 6 years. 6 years of the flocks. He did that right after he gave birth, after Rachel gave birth to Joseph. So right now, Joseph is 6 years old, and they're leaving. 6 years, the number of man. 6 years The third series of 7 is only 6 years in before they go back to the promised land. And Rachel just dies before she gets there, giving birth to her second son, Benjamin. God is so good. Every story has nuggets, pearls, that just makes you want to fall down on your knees and thank the Lord for his word. And you love the word so much that you can't wait to find more nuggets. I pray for blessing over you and your study in God's beautiful, amazing word. Shalom.